Elder and former Chief Charlie Football has a familiar northern story. He came to Wekweètì for a month and then he stayed for a lifetime. We spoke earlier about the history of this place, and Football began with his own history, the story of how he came to Wekweètì.
I started using dog chain about 68, 69. Then I really like go on the land. That's my favorite spot. Because my dad always say, Wekweètì is the best place. We see lots of caribou. We have my boys and my daughters, they're all buried here along this shoreline. And then after I got married, I talked to my wife about it. Even though his dad's graveyard's on a Winter Lake. So one time we talked about it and they said, we should come down here for one summer or 1 month. So we came down here for 1 month. And then at the same time, we came here about 4 days later, my Uncle Lou was going down to Winter Lake for caribou hunt. So I told him, if you want to come, you can come. So I started packing my own gear. And he said, what about those 2 little kids? And I said, you sure? I said, yeah, if you could only feed them, take them along. So I took them 2 kids, 2 of my boys, about 10 and 7 years old. They came along, they were small. So we went out to Winter Lake, and the end of Winter Lake, that's where we ran into caribou. Boys, there were lots of fun. After we finished everything, about 3 weeks after we come back from Winter Lake, we thought we were going to go back to Wekweètì, and they were just packing up, and then those 2 little said, Mom and Dad, what were you guys doing packing up? I said, we're going back to Wekweètì. And then the boobs sat down on the floor. I said, they're crying. I said, we don't want to go back to Wekweètì. Wekweètì doesn't have no caribou, nothing, but here we had lots of fun. So we took the worst. That's how we got stuck in Brooklyn. 1 month we're still here. Yeah.
Charlie, I wonder what you kind of touched upon it, but could you tell me what makes Wekweètì such a special place?
Well, for people like my elders, they used to travel around from Wekweètì all the way from here, just for caribou. Caribou, if they shoot caribou, they use a jacket, parka, everything out of caribou hide. So every year, every summer, sometimes they say they spend a whole year here. So that's why one of the elders over here on the graveyard site, he'd been traveling around, and then he seen the vision of the spiritual stuff. And then sometimes he talked to people like that. And then one time, everybody was going back to Wekweètì area, but him and his whole family stay here. And that's why he lost his wife and himself. They're both buried here. But I don't know where his wife buried, but I know he passed away here, so somebody must have buried here. So lots of good stories about him.
Tell me what changes you've seen in the community during your time here.
Well, first time there was no Harley Road. The only thing they can do is get some groceries from Wekweètì from here by dog team.
Wow.
And then lately, about 1970, 75, somewhere around there, Ernest Stanwell from Germany. They said that he's a German guy. Came down to Wekweètì, and I bought a store from P. Burker. And then he started traveling around like Wekweètì, Wekweètì, bringing in some stuff that he thinks is good for our people down here. So some of them, people, they stop going to Wekweètì, get some groceries, because Ernest Stanwell, he's a general store manager, so he brings dry good to people by airplane. So they got a fur and then they give it a fur, and they get what they want from the store. So that's how they end up being here. This lake didn't have a name before, but the elders that always come here, they always end up with caribou, 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 caribou. The first lake is always big. They ran into caribou all the time. So they don't have the name for this, but they say, I guess they were stopping for overnight camping. They said, we've been on this lake for so many years. We haven't got the name for this lake. What shall we call it? And then one of the elders said, ever since we come to this Snare Lake, we always end up with caribou, caribou. Not another lake, we never hit no caribou. But this lake always be the first lake to run into caribou. So we call it, before any other lake, Wekweètì. That's what I call it. Yeah.
Wekweètì.
Wekweètì, yeah. That means any other lake before this lake.
So any other lake before this lake, you're
Yeah.
not going to get caribou.
Yeah.
But this is the caribou lake.
Yeah.
Wekweètì.
Wekweètì, yeah.
Wekweètì.
Uh-huh.
Charlie, merci. Thank you so much for speaking with me.
No problem.